think we will give it a couple more minutes for the stragglers to come in. In our class, in Ozzy's class, the other adult, I guess the younger adult class, if you show up late, you get a applause. So for the first 15 minutes, we're pretty much clapping the whole time on some days, Let's see if that'll help. Okay. Yeah, I had to move back a little bit. That these vents will blow you away. So I feel like back here I'm a little better. I'm not constantly turning my pages over. So. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start. As y'all know, last week we talked about we're going to do an 8-week lesson on Proverbs. So I am in my Bible study in Proverbs every day. I say every day. I missed one day this week, just got away from me, but I caught up the next day and was able to get some more in. So one of the things that what we're going to talk about today is something that I know very, very well. I may be a master at this. So this is one of the things that I have excelled at throughout my life from a young age. And so I feel like I am definitely very prepared, and I don't know that you will find a better person more equipped to teach this lesson than myself. So that being said, we're going to talk about foolishness today. And so foolishness is something that, I think I've been foolish for more times than I've been wise in my life, especially growing up, So foolishness is one of the things that Solomon talks about a lot in Proverbs, not as much as wisdom, but every time there's a wise saying, there's also a foolish saying that goes on right before it or right after it. So I do think it's very important to us to know foolishness, to know how we can see the world, and the world is definitely foolishness, but foolishness is I feel like we're in a time now to where foolishness is very prevalent, and I can't turn on a TV or I can't turn on a video or a YouTube or anything without seeing foolishness, and it seems like it's being held up on a pedestal. It's like everywhere I look, I see just stupidity, and people are acting like it is something special. I mean, you got people today that are getting paid millions and millions of dollars to do stupid things. And then the world that we live in holds these people in high regard. They make movies with them. We got movies about, 3 guys going to Vegas and acting idiot, just stupid. And they're making millions and millions of dollars on stupidity. So I do feel like we are living in a time of foolishness that the Bible tells us about. And in that, I think it's very important for us to see it and be able to recognize it. But foolishness is a lack of truth. Would y'all say that's correct? Foolishness is a lack of basically godly wisdom. So everything outside of God's wisdom is foolish. And so when when I was a kid and a child, and I still am very childlike in a lot of my ways, if you ask my wife, but whenever we came into the world, did we know anything? When we were born, we were all fools, right? We didn't know what our hand was. We didn't know what was hot, what was cold. We didn't know anything. So we had to learn all those things, correct? And I'm one of those that I learned the hard way more often than I learned the easy way. So I don't know if it's being a boy growing up or what it is. I know that in Proverbs, he refers to wisdom as a lady, the lady of wisdom. So maybe women, y'all are smarter than us boys and men. We got an amen there. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I definitely have one extra believer on that one. But, the foolish side of things is I feel like I've been an expert at this in my life. Every time that I go and try to do it my way, guess what happens? I get brought down. But, God's wisdom was given to me as a child from my father and my parents. And growing up in a church since we were 5, I had a lot of wisdom available to me in those days. But, I guess I just needed to be like the world and decided that I knew what was the right way and I was going to do it my way. Well, we know that in Proverbs that when we do things our way, most of the times it's the wrong way. We have to lean on God's understanding and his wisdom to keep us away from these foolish things. Like I said earlier, I do believe that we are living in a foolish time, and then it is our job as Christians to be the light and salt, right, to the world, which we read about in Matthew. He tells us to be the light to the world and also be the salt that flavors the world. And I think a lot of times that when we're in this foolish time, it is important for us to stand up against the foolishness and be vocal, let people know that this is not the right way to do things. And I believe it's harder and harder to go that direction because of how the world demonizes anything that's of the church, anything that is godly wisdom. It is looked down upon in today's world, which I believe it's been looked down upon for generations and generations. Imagine when Jesus died on the cross. I bet that if they could sell souvenirs at that time, people would have done it. From how bad we saw, how they acted at that time, but what he went through, they wanted this, and that's how more foolish can you get? When you have someone of Jesus' stature, the life he lived, and then they crucified him, but the people wanted it. They were applauding it. They were happy and rejoicing over it. So as bad as we think it today is, it's nothing compared to what was back then, in my opinion. So, I can't imagine living in a time as those times. I think it's bad at sometimes here, but also know that whatever I focus on, whatever I think about, is what I get in this world, in the world that we live in. And so if we think on good and godly things, guess what we get to experience in life? Good and godly things. If we think on foolish things, guess what we get? We get foolishness, correct? Well, in today's world, foolishness has become right, it seems like. And then the right has become foolish. And to me, that's a sign of the times that we're in, and how close I believe that Jesus' return is coming, because at some point he will not deal with this. Like, we don't want to get to a point where he finds no joy in us. If we are foolish, God doesn't find joy in us. We have examples. So today we're gonna kind of dive into chapter 10, mostly in Proverbs. Last week we talked about the first few chapters of Proverbs were Solomon and his letter to his son. So a lot of these were letters of how to raise up a child to be wise. And so now we're starting to get into the wisdom sayings in chapter 10. And I'm going to read a few of these verses just to kind of get us started. And one of the first ones that we read is, wise sayings of Solomon in chapter 10, verse 1. The Proverbs of Solomon: a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother. Treasures of wickedness profit nothing, but righteousness delivers from death. The Lord will not allow the righteous soul to famish, but he casts away the desires of the wicked. He who has a slack hand becomes poor, and the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a wise son, and he who sleeps in harvest is a son who causes shame. Blessings are on the head of the righteous, but violence covers the mouth of the wicked. The memory of the righteous is blessed, but the name of the wicked will not. The wise in heart will receive commands, but a prating fool will fall. Is anyone here familiar with the word prating? Because I'm not, and I didn't have a chance to look it up yet. I looked up Babbling, okay. Anybody else have a definition of prating or something in your Bible or your version? David? Chattering, okay. Okay. Babbling, chattering, so basically senseless words. Yeah, just, kind of like how we hear that's kind of, that. Just there's no point to what they're saying. So that makes a lot more sense to me. I like that better than prating. I've never quite used that one. So we can learn from that there in verse 8 that fools use a lot of words. Would y'all agree with that? And they tend to talk about the same thing over and over, but they don't really get anywhere. It's kind of nothingness is what they're talking about. They're talking about things without substance, or value, merit value. So they're talking about senseless things, correct? So that's one way we can know about foolishness. In verse, let me see right here. Okay. He goes on, let's go back to 9. He who walks with integrity walks securely, but he who perverts his way will become known. He who winks with an eye causes trouble, but a prating fool will fall. The mouth of the righteous is a well of life, but violence covers the mouth of the wicked. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all sins. Wisdom is found on the lips of him who has understanding, but a rod is for the back of him who is devoid of understanding. Boy, I felt that rod a few times in my life, so not more of a switch or a belt, but I never got a full rod, I don't think. So wise people store up knowledge, but the mouth of the foolish is near destruction. A rich man's wealth is a strong city. The destruction of the poor is their poverty. The labor of the righteous leads to life. The wages of the wicked is sin. He who keeps instruction is in the way of life, but he who refuses correction goes astray. Well, one of the things about foolishness that we know is that it refuses instruction, correct? We know that when we are foolish, we are stepping aside from God's wisdom and his instruction, and we do our own things that our ego wants us to do, right? When I hear ego, I always think of edging God out is one of those. It's like when your ego's in charge, you cannot listen to God. You just, because you're so focused on your way and not God's way. Let's skip over to chapter 10, verse 18. Whoever hides hatred has lying lips, and whoever spreads slander is a fool. Do y'all, spreading slander, is that something that we witness today? And where do you think we see some slander being spread? Where? Politics? Well, don't even get me started on politics. So I'm going to leave that one out today. I was told, do not talk about politics at church. I said, okay, I will not. I think they're all bad, but don't get me started. So, politics is one. What about media? What about news? The news channel. Do y'all see a lot of truth on the news? Do you feel like there's a lot of good days on the news when the news comes up and say, hey, we had a great day today. Let me tell you all the great things that happened. I don't think that happens until the very end of the news. You might get 2 or 3 minutes worth of goodness at the very end after about an hour worth of destruction and hatred and all the bad things, right? So, well, in this foolish time that we live in, I do think that, a fool, for one, abandons truth, right? Like they know that the truth is there, but they don't want to have anything to do with it. They despise the truth. So if you are foolish in your ways, you have no room for truth. That is an absence of truth. And to me, truth is what it's all about. That is what I'm in search for. I want the truth, nothing but the truth, and yes, I can handle the truth. So if the truth comes my way, I want it, I seek it, and my life gets better whenever I find it. David? Nobody wants to be wrong, right? You think that's why that the church is in the position that it is today? You know, who believes that their God is the only God? All of them, right? Pretty much, most congregations, most churches believe that their way to God is the right and only way, right? Well, can that be true? Can it be true that everybody's God is the God, and everybody's way to God is the one way to God? Well, then what do we do? You know, how do we know? How do you know if your way or your God is the God? I think there's one way to know: is your God based in truth? You know, my God can't tell a lie. My God cannot be anything but loving and truthful. You know, now with the loving side of it there's another side to that when you're outside of his love, or I don't know that we're ever outside of his love, but whenever you're not acting in his love or acting in his ways, we know that when we follow his wisdom, we are protected and we're able to go through this life more unscathed. You know, for sure, our life can get easier when we have wise decisions. I know that the hardest times in my life were when I had poor decisions. You know, every bad thing I've ever went through, every hard time I've ever been through, the times I got shot at or got stabbed, or don't even get me started on the bad road that I've been down. But thankfully, I have been through it. I have survived it, you know, and I've learned valuable lessons that no one will ever take away from me. No matter what my kids go through throughout life, I have been through it and I have survived it. So I have gained wisdom and knowledge and understanding because of those, you know, hard times I went through. Personally, I'm thankful for hard times and failure. You know, back before COVID started, 2019, I was actually praying for failure in my life. I had had a lot of success in my business, and I felt like I was at a point to where I needed failure to get to the next level. You know, I felt like I had reached as high as I could go with what I had learned to that point. Well, I was praying for failure daily. I said, God, bring me some failure because I believe I need to learn some new lessons, which is foolish to a lot of people. But I think when you seek wisdom and understanding, you also know that in that trials and tribulations and making the wrong decisions and failure is just it's a prerequisite to success. So for me, I don't ever look down. Like whenever I have failures in life, they don't get me down. They used to. They used to hold me down and keep me back, and you know, I always thought about them. Well, now when I have a failure, I chalk it up as experience and thankfulness. I'm thankful in my failures because I know the lessons that I get after the failure are the best lessons I've ever learned in my life, hands down. And those lessons are in me, and they are wired into me, and I know I will never make those same mistakes again. Well, you know, God tells us, or Solomon tells us here, that a foolish person is like a dog, right, that returns to his own vomit. So when we are foolish, we are doing foolish things over and over and over again, right? I know that this is probably the wisest crowd I've ever spoken to, so if y'all can think back many years ago when y'all were foolish, what were the things that you were foolish about in your life? Can anybody give me an example of a time that you may not want to, but you know, share a testimony of a time that you were foolish and what came after your foolishness? I mean, I could be up here talking all day about my foolishness. That's why I believe that I'm the right person to talk about foolishness in Proverbs, because I feel like I checked off all the list. So anybody have anything they'd like to share about a time that they were foolish, maybe younger ages or younger years? And it may be a hard thing for y'all to connect with, you know, but I know for me it wasn't.
I didn't pay on the credit card the cash money that he was giving me. So we ended up paying for those, bottom line, we ended up paying for those Cowboys tickets for about 5 years.
This is a gift that kept on giving, right?
Yeah, on the credit card. So, you learn lessons.
It's definitely very easy to be foolish with money at times, right? Especially when we want to purchase things maybe that we can't afford yet. I'll give an example. I actually was trying to buy some tickets not too long ago for a concert for my daughter. Well, the guy was dishonest, and I knew better. Every warning sign came up, said, hey, this ain't right, this ain't right. And of course the person went, oh, I'm a Christian and you can trust me. And they played the Christian card. You know, I've had that. And they played it pretty deep. And I was like, you know what, it's only $170. You know, I'm gonna take a chance, you know. Well, needless to say, I lost my $170, you know, and I learned a very, very valuable lesson. But I should have trusted my instinct. I think about the times when I was a contractor at the W Hotel and Residences. I was doing a big remodel for the Kardashians' old unit. So when the Kardashians lived there, they moved and sold to some doctors, and I took their place and remodeled it. Well, I went with a contractor to get the cabinets built, and I'd had a few different bids, and I had this person over here that I dealt with for many years that I knew they would do what they said they were going to do. Well, they gave me a bid here. It's about up here. This other guy that came up, and his company's name was Three Nails Construction. So he was pushing the Christian faith on everyone and telling just how good he was. So told me everything he was going to do. We met up, and when I first met him, my spidey senses went off. Something wasn't right. When they asked him for his ID to get into the property, I could tell something was not right with this guy. Well, he gave a lower bid. And so my customer said, oh, I want this guy. We like his price. I was like, well, I've never dealt with this guy before, but he says he can do all these things. Okay, let's go with it. Well, I gave him his money down and put the deposit in, so he's going to start working on it. We were 5 weeks away from delivery. He said, no problem. When we get to about a week before delivery, I said, hey, let's schedule this delivery. Let's get it done. Let's schedule the install. He goes, well, I'm going to need some more money. I haven't even bought materials yet. And I'm like, well, you told me when I gave you the money, you bought materials. You told me this. You told me straight out that you bought all these things. Well, then he changed his mind, and then it just kept on. Well, after that, he took my $15,000 and didn't do anything with it. So I took the loss on that. But being a man of my word, I ended up going to the other person that I originally had. I got them to pull the job off within a week. And we were 1 day late on my estimate of when it was supposed to be done. I was 1 day late, but I had to go with someone else. Well, I took a loss, and that came out of my pocket. So I worked for 3 months on that job, every day, pretty much, except for weekends, and I did not make $1. Didn't make $1. Now, I paid all my contractors. Everybody else got paid, and that was my last job contracting after that. Because I was like, if I can't trust my Christian brother here to do what he said he was going to do, I don't need to be in this business. It's like I had a hard time, wrapping my head around that. But that was one of those expensive lessons. And every time that I'm in that position, God speaks to me in this low, subtle voice. And it comes through my intuition. It comes through my inspiration. It comes through, and it just speaks to me, but it's quiet. He's not loud and boisterous when he speaks to us. And when I should have trusted those instincts. Well, now I trust those instincts. I say that, but I fell again when I was trying to make my daughter happy, get her into that concert she'd been dreaming about. I took the loss on that too. But again, the failure that I get, I'm thankful for it because it reassures me that I'm on the right path in God's word. Because he told me about this. He told me these kind of things would happen. When it sounds too good to be true, guess what? It is every single time. It is too good to be true. But my foolishness came out. My desire to want to get a good deal on something and not have to pay overpriced. Now I know why the tickets are so high, because you can trust those tickets. they come from the Ticketmaster, right? So you know that you're gonna get the right thing. Well, when you stray outside of that, what happens? You get burnt, you get caught, and you learn your lessons. Now, I've quit praying for failure, for the last few years. So and the last few times this past summer, did some art fairs, and they were not profitable. I lost a lot of money, and I haven't lost money in art fairs in several years. So I took 2 back-to-back losses. And after that, I was okay, God, I got the failure. It is in. I appreciate it, but I'll take some success now. I'll take a little more success. And guess what? After I quit praying for it, I started getting success. It's funny how it works that way, but we get what we ask for. And I think it's very important for us to know what we ask for and be very adamant and focused on what we want in life. God is a God of abundance and giving. He's the most abundant thing that we know, the presence that we know in this world. And so his abundance is ever flowing, but it's up to us to get in line with his abundance, right? It's up to us and I think the only way to get his abundance is through wisdom, which Proverbs is the book of wisdom. So there's so many wise sayings in this book, and I know I haven't gotten very far into it yet, but I know that every time I get into it, I can just keep on going and going, and oh, that's a good saying, that's a good saying, that's a good saying. And the more that we can get familiar with these and focus on these things, it opens us up to his abundance and his wisdom. I'm going to skip down to verse 23 and 10 as we're talking about foolishness again. To do evil is like sport to a fool, but a man of understanding has wisdom. So to do evil is like a sport to a fool. What do y'all think that means? Enjoyment of being fools, like a sport, okay. Oh, without a doubt. And I know that he probably did it several times, at that point. And, when it says it's like a sport, I think it's a competition. When I think of sports, I think of competition. And I think about giving all your energy. Sports take energy, which is your inner spirit is how I look at it. So whenever you give your inner spirit to something, it makes it that much more, that stronger. We're giving life to it. So in sports, we are competing, right? And then you're trying to find a winner. There's a winner and a loser in every sport. And so with foolishness, it is a sport to them. So that means that it is a competition to see how good they can be at it and how deceiving they can be at it, right? So I wish that being wise was a sport to us. And could we say that same thing? Like, when we are searching for wisdom, it needs to be almost I don't want to say a competition, but we need to treat it like it is. We need to seek and search for that wisdom in a way that is sport-like, where we give all of our energy to it. And I think if we focus on that and we do that, and this is our, like, I want to be wise like Solomon. I mean, does anybody pray for that in their wisdom, to pray for wisdom like Solomon had wisdom? I do. I want Solomon's wisdom, but also know that with that wisdom, he had to go through a lot of things to gain that wisdom. He wasn't just born with the wisdom. He had to experience it. He had to live it. He had to learn it. And without a doubt, that energy, right? It's kind of like in relationships as well. Marriage, could we say the same thing? Like they say, for a successful marriage, it's important to date, like you did before you were married, and I would, and had that energy, that we called it puppy love, but, imagine having a marriage relationship that is like that every day. And I know that there are marriages out there like that. I've seen it, I've witnessed it, I've experienced it, so I know that it is possible. But the same thing, just like you said, it's about that zeal, it's about our energy and our emotion, right? So we have to put emotion into it. It's like when we use words, if we don't have any emotion behind our words, what do they mean? Do they connect with people? Never. There's just monotone nothingness, but when we add color or salt or light to our words, guess what? People feel inspired by our words because we are using our spirit. We are using the way that we say it, which I think, we say a lot of stuff in this world. The world says a lot of stuff, but it all depends on how you say it is what's going to matter if it's going to connect or not. If you're not putting any emotion behind what you have to say, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't grow. It doesn't inspire. It doesn't connect. It doesn't do any of those kind of things, And we know that foolishness can have high levels of emotion in it, especially if we read of babbling, right? So they've got a lot of words to say. But unfortunately, just like I said with my ticket escapade or my ticket loss, he said a lot of words, and every time he was saying, you got to trust me, and, and then the funny thing was whenever, I'd say not funny, the sad thing was but whenever I made that first little payment, and he was supposed to send me 2 tickets, and then I'd pay for the second one after the first one went through, Well, after that happened, guess what? He changed the deal. Now I'm gonna need you to send more and more, then I'll do it. I was, well, you weren't a man of your word. You didn't do what you said you're gonna do, Christian. And I called him out on it, But again, I took my loss and I said, you know what, thank you for the loss. I know I'm a foolish man at times, and I wanna believe, as Christians, we wanna believe the good in people, right? And that can be our downfall at times in the world because we trust people. We want to trust people. We want them to do the right thing and tell us the right thing. Well, the world is full of deception, right? Satan is the father of deception. And so in this world that we live in today, deception is rampant. And I think that we're probably deceived more than we are anything else in today's world. I firmly believe that deception is so prevalent that we get more deception than we get anything else. We definitely get more deception than we get truth. How easy is it to find the truth today? Would you say it's easier or less easy than it was 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago? I think the only place you can find truth is right here. This is the only place that I go for truth. If it ain't in here, chances are I don't believe it. And I'm old school. Like, I believe in the firmament. I believe that God separated the waters from the waters, and we got a firmament above us that we cannot leave. I believe that this earth is not movable. I believe that it is on a foundation, like it says in the Bible, and I believe that it ain't going anywhere, ever, until God doesn't want it to be here. But the world doesn't tell us that. The world wants us to believe all kinds of things about trillions of light years away and this and that, and, all kinds of stuff. Like, I can't even fathom the stuff that I've been taught that's supposed to be truth, that whenever I go test it, there ain't no truth in it. There ain't a lick of truth in it. And so, because of that, I have to question everything, but I seek truth on a daily basis, and I want the truth. And so because I seek it, guess what I'm going to find? I'm going to find what I seek, and I'm going to find the truth. So I think, now with being in Proverbs, I'm seeking wisdom. And I go to Proverbs when I do read. I'd say I probably read Proverbs more than any other book in the Bible because I'm always being such a fool for most of my life. And that's just an absence of truth, right? When you're foolish, you don't want God's wisdom, and so you don't have any truth. And that would be called what? Ignorance. So I know that there are prerequisites to wisdom. Like, in order for us to have wisdom, which is what Proverbs is all about, we kind of have to go through 4 or 5 stages before we can find wisdom. One of the first things that we got to go through is ignorance. So what is ignorance? I'm sorry? Lack of knowledge, okay. I have ignorance as the absence of truth. Because in ignorance, you don't know. You don't know anything. It's like being a baby. Like you don't, until my mama came and told me something or taught me something, I was ignorant. I didn't know, or my dad, whoever it was that raised me, I was ignorant. Well, we have to find ignorance before we can get to wisdom. And then knowledge. What is knowledge? I think knowledge is the second prerequisite to wisdom. And what is knowledge? Understanding? I have here, knowledge is the accumulation of truth, right? So as you have knowledge on a subject, you have accumulated truth in a way, so now you have knowledge on that subject, okay? So that is a prerequisite of wisdom as well. And what about understanding? What happens when you have understanding? Say it again. Okay, which is like an assimilation of knowledge, right? Or an assimilation of truth, you might say. So once you have understanding, which I don't really like the word understanding because you're under the foundation of it. I'd rather be understanding, like knowing. I'm not a big fan of the word understanding because I feel like it puts you at a lower level. But that's just me and how I say it. So once we have understanding, which is an assimilation of truth, we have wisdom, right? So what is wisdom? An application of truth, exactly. That's when we've put all the things, so we've put our ignorance aside, we've got our knowledge and our understanding. Well, now we have wisdom, right? Because we've applied those truths, and therefore we can be wise, correct? Well, is there anything after that? Guess what comes after wisdom? Ignorance again. Because if we don't take the application of the truth and we don't use and we're not wise in our way, well, guess what? We return back to ignorance. Because ignorance is the lack of truth, or God's, like say a fool, we are foolish after wisdom. If we don't use what we've learned and we go against what we've learned in God's ways, well, guess what? We're fools again. And we got to start the whole process over. So I think those are very important to understand. Like if you want to be wise, you have to go through these prerequisites in order to gain wisdom. But you have to be ignorant first. And in a world where no one believes that they're wrong, in a world where everyone believes that their way is the right way, well, there's a lack of wisdom there if they're stuck in that and they don't go to God and His truthful word in order to find it. Correct? Yeah. Everybody's own truth, right? Yeah. Live your best life. Be your own truth, all that kind of stuff. And, being a Bible believer today, in today's world, is shunned upon, right? We're looked at as fools, would you say? People that, oh, you believe in the Bible? Man, like, why would you believe in that old book? We know that da-da-da-da happened and Constantine did this and da-da-da-da-da, but we are looked down upon. So, again, we are living in a foolish time. Foolishness is rewarded today. It is rewarded in the world. Well, guess what? I'm not looking for that reward. The world's reward. I've had it. No, thank you. My foolishness was very rewarding at times, but only just for a moment, And then after that moment passed, it got worse and worse and worse. So, I'm going to go back to Proverbs 6, verse 16, and I love this book here, but these verses, because it tells us what the Lord hates. He hates these. He says these 6 things the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to Him. Well, the first thing he says, a proud look. What's a proud look? How do we not have a proud look? I don't see any proud looks in here right now, so you are safe. You don't have to worry about me pointing you out. Okay. Does a proud person learn lessons, or are there any lessons to learn? You know, I give an example of one of my mentors who's a master artist, you know, and me, I will never see myself as a master artist. I'm only masterful through God and his creativeness that flows through me. That's the only time I can ever reach mastery. If it's up to me, I believe I'm a student, a lifetime student of the arts. I'm always learning because I believe if I've reached mastery, then I don't have any room for learning. You know, because you're already a master. You can't get any better. You can't get any smarter, can't get any wiser because you're already up there. You know, and I feel like a proud look is that same kind of, I'm a master. I'm the best. I'm the best of the best. If we go back to Genesis 1, we know that Satan, he was teaching, whenever Adam and Eve sinned, what did he tell them? He said, you will be like gods, right? If you go against what God said, you will be on his same level. And so it's our desire to want to be godlike that I think separates us from him. That's a religion in and of itself, right? So that can come along with a proud look as well, wouldn't you say? You know, that I'm too good. Like, God made me perfect, which I think it's great to believe that God made us perfect, but we can't make everybody else, push everybody else down because of our perfectness is so perfect, if that makes sense. That's the wrong way to do it. And we know that God hates that. So he despises it. He says he despises a lying tongue, right? And that's pretty easy. I mean, who loves liars? Come on, put your hands up. Who loves a liar? Nobody. Weird. Thought at least would have had one, you know. Hands that shed innocent blood. A heart that deceives wicked plans, right? A heart that deceives wicked plans. The guy, my ticket scalper guy, would you say he had a heart that deceived wicked plans, right? It was a sport to him, and I'm sure he was high-fiving whoever after they got as much money as they were trying to get. You know, that's another example of that. Feet that are swift in running to evil. God despises that. So when you see evil and you know it's over there, it'd be like going to a strip club or something, and you're running to go get to that strip club. I would say that would be running to evil, you know. The next one he has is a false witness, right? Who spreads lies or spreads folly. Is that what I said? Let's see what we got here. What's y'all's version say? Say it again. Who spreads lies, right? Do y'all see any false witnesses today? I get some chuckles, so obviously there's some false witnesses. Are there any false witnesses in politics? Can I get an amen? Maybe 2, 3? I can just talk about the word without getting into it. So, and one who sows discord among the believers. Man, I think that one is one that we should all really take hold of and understand. You know, so if you are sowing discord among believers, so what would be a way to sow discord within the church? Or what else? So that's a gossip, right? Gossip. I know in Proverbs he talks about people that are wine drinkers are gossipers, right? So like if you drink wine, you're a gossiper. You're there to gossip and, you know, just talk about this person. There's nothing worse than whenever I go to speak with somebody and they say, oh, did you hear about so-and-so? No, I didn't, and I don't want to know. None of my business, and that's just one opinion, one point of view, and no thanks. You know, I choose to think about this person in a good way, which I currently do, and so I don't need to know anything else, you know. And I think one of the other things that we read about that God hates is he hates dishonest scales, right? So that's whenever you say you're going to, let's say you want to go get a pile of oranges, and you're like, oh, I'm going to buy 2 pounds of oranges here. Well, you get home and you got a pound of oranges. You know, God hates that. But what he loves honest scales. So all these things that he hates, would you say that those are ways of the foolish? You know, when we act out of those ways, we are foolish in his eyes. And so therefore, when we are foolish, we cannot gain wisdom. And so I think for me, it's very important to always focus on God's word in order to receive the wisdom and to leave my foolish ways behind. And one thing I want to ask, and I don't really need an answer, you know, but has God lost his joy with us? It's one thing that I hope not, you know, but I do know that if a father loses his joy, then chances are he's going to come back, you know, and put us straight again. So I think it's very important to us as Christians, to be the joy of the world. We have to be the light and the salt, as Matthew says. So in order to do that, we have to base ourselves in truth and his wise words on a daily basis. If we can focus on those things, I think we can be the light and we can be the salt that he calls us to be. Thank you all for joining us today, and we will be back next week. And then after that, I won't be here the following week. I've got to travel to Florida again, so right after next Sunday, I'll have my art trailer, and I'll be back to Florida again for another 10 days. So, but someone will have to cover me while I'm gone, and hopefully they will bring some wisdom from Proverbs. Thanks, guys.